Ivan Pavlenko from Family to Family, Chapter 1, Part 2.6, Our Family Tree. My brother Victor was born in 1928. As a child, he was thin and frail, either from illness or from malnutrition. After all, he was 5 years old when the famine raged in Ukraine. They thought that he would not survive, but the young body overcame it, and Victor's physique most resembles their father's. He was a little shorter than Vasil, but stockier than him. In the photo, you can see Victor in his mother's hands. This is Nastya Mikhailovna, and this is his father, Ivan Grigorovich. This is his father's brother, Petro Grigorovich. These are his brothers, Ivan and Vasil, and his sister, Maria. And this is a guest from Odessa. This is the father's cousin's wife and their children, Valik and Galia. Before the war, Victor managed to finish only 6th grade. In the summer, he grazed a cow, ran to the river to catch fish, and when the Germans came to the village, he somewhere got a military cap with a red star and demonstratively walked around the village in it. Once the women who were sitting on the blocks and plucking the seeds asked him, "Boy, whose are you?" He replied, "Soviet." It was ostentatious, childish patriotism. At that time, our troops were moving from Lokhvitsa to Sveredivka in order to descend Lisa Gora to the Luchansky bridge across the Sula. On the way, near a pear tree, a car loaded with sugar and other products stopped. Near it, several soldiers, led by a lieutenant, sat down to have a snack. But they were spotted by the Germans from Lokhvitsa. They fired several shells. One of them hit the car and crashed it. The lieutenant was killed. The fighters rushed to flee to Yarky. Vasil and Victor, who were watching from Marachin forest, began to approach the car. As Victor mentioned, they wanted to find weapons and ammunition near it. But the Germans noticed them and apparently thought they were soldiers. The shells whistled again, and the boys rushed back into the woods. They jumped behind the trees, and the fragments on the tree tops lop, lop, lop. Then people saw 2 soldiers and a lieutenant killed under the pear tree. The German brought men from the village to bury the killed. A man wanted to take off the lieutenant's chrome boots. The German noticed that. He pulled out a gun and wanted to shoot him, but surrounded by people, he limited himself to the threat of shooting. Victor was friends with Mikhailo Pogulai, Ostapiev. He was 2 years older, and they wanted to send him to Germany, but he hid in the forest and at Victor's, who once was almost punished by the police. Under the Germans, people lived materially no worse than under Stalin. There was the same collective farm. They got even more bread for a working day, 3-4 kilograms each. But an enemy is an enemy. Seeing that the Germans were taking all the grain to their fatherland, people arranged night raids to collect grain on the way to the threshing machine. Ava Vasil took part in them, and sometimes Victor too. After the war, Victor went to school, first to Luka and then to the Stalin sugar factory, where Uncle Alexei worked as a teacher. He improved Victor's knowledge of mathematics and physics, and he entered the Kiev Artillery College. After graduating from the college, Victor served as a lieutenant in the army in Germany. Here you can see the photo of Victor. He told us how, in the middle of the night, their military unit was raised by alarm and thrown at the rebellious Berlin. Then they took up combat positions and were ready to open cannon fire at any moment. After that, the Berlin Wall was erected. Military service abroad was in some ways better than on the territory of the Union. Officers were paid in rubles and marks, could buy and send home everything that was not available in the Union: fabrics, clothes, shoes, carpets. But the bachelor officers drank those marks out of boredom, and when someone went on vacation, everyone gave money to buy gifts for the relatives. Here it is worth mentioning the story of Victor himself on the topic of army drunkenness. I came from the college to the military unit and was immediately received by the regiment commander. His first words literally stunned me. "Do you drink, Lieutenant?" "No, Comrade Colonel," I answered confused, "as I don't take it in my mouth. After all, I've only come from the college." "If you don't drink, then you will drink," he affirmatively stated. "Vodka is our biggest problem, Lieutenant, and I warn you—" "I understand what you mean, Comrade Colonel." "Well, good. I wish you excellent service, and now go to the officers' meeting and get to know your colleagues." I went there, and there it was in the midst of some kind of feast. "Oh, young replenishment has arrived. Sit down at the table," and immediately my glass was full. I began to refuse, referring to the colonel, to my situation. "Let him go. The colonel himself drinks more than us. Drink." I saw that I would not get away with it. I drank half a glass and began to eat. Suddenly, the door opened and the colonel entered. I was so uncomfortable. I didn't know where to look. And he sat down, drank a glass of vodka, had a bite, and then another glass. He sat for 10 minutes and left. That was the life of an officer abroad. Once a year, Victor came on vacation, brought expensive gifts, rugs, pieces of cloth for dresses, etc. It was cheap there, but expensive here. Victor, in his youth, was handsome and cheerful. He kept pouring out anecdotes and stories. Unusual adventures happened to him. Fleet Lieutenant Alexei Ivanovich Stetsenko, son of the vet Ivan Yakovich, came on vacation with him. Both were young and married. They went after the girls, mostly from Lochvitsa, and once they went to see a colleague in Lutsenki. There, a KGB major got hold of them, so they made him drink and took the gun away. At dawn, the major woke up, there was no gun, and the boys were already in Yashniki. He came to our place and asked, "Give it back." They gave it, only without cartridges. They shot them, going from Lutsenki to Yashniki. In the army, Victor was the commander of a fire platoon and then a control platoon. He served for 3 years, received the rank of senior lieutenant, and submitted a report on his release into the reserve. It was Khrushchev who announced a significant reduction in the armed forces, just about 1 million, and he was fired. After demobilization, he first entered the mining technical school by correspondence and then the Geological Institute. He worked in the north as the chief geologist of the nickel mine, and then as the geologist of the mine management in the city of Donetsk, Rostov region. Victor got married at the age of 30 when he received an education and firmly stood on his own feet. He took Katerina Leontievna, daughter of Levko Babich, as his wife. I participated in matchmaking and was at the wedding. Here is the photo of Katerina. Victor and Katya live well and in harmony. They have 2 children, daughter Tamara and son Serhiy. The daughter got married in Vitebsk. She is a master tailor. At first, she was a teacher in a vocational school in this field, and now she sews in a company. Her husband is a locksmith and works at a factory. They have a son, Yevhen. And Serhiy graduated from technical school. He is a specialist in setting up automatic equipment at the plant. After serving in the army, he works in Kemerovo. He got married there. His wife's name is Marina. She works in trade. They have 2 sons, Artem and Pavlo. So our family continues in Siberia. Victor and Katya are left alone. Victor is already retired, at the same time serves as the head of the training center at the mine management. Katya works as a laboratory technician at an enrichment factory. She is younger than Victor by 11 years. They have a 3-room apartment, a good cottage with a young garden. Children and grandchildren come to them every summer. One of them, climbing on the grandfather, chanted, "We came to visit the grandfather to rub his bones." Of my brothers, as I have already said, Victor is the most similar in physics to our father, and I am the one in faith. Father's bangs were almost black, like mine, and Vasil's and Victor's were dark blonde, like Maria's and Olga's. Olga and I have features of resemblance of our mother. Ola has the same looks and character. I have a singing voice and a penchant for learning. My mother started well. I graduated from high school with a gold medal. Everything about Maria is the Shevchenkos. Physique, face enlarged as for a woman, leg size, number 42. The youngest among us is our sister Oля. She was born in September 1941. When the Germans entered the village, the mother hid with her from bombs and shells in the garden, where the father had dug a small trench. About her childhood and school years, as well as about her whole life, I know little, and superficially, since we rarely happened to be together. She studied well, graduated from high school and a polytechnic institute. She works almost all the time as a design engineer at an electric locomotive plant in Novocherkassk. Outwardly, Oля is ostentatious and I would say beautiful, as well as smart and gentle. Now Oля lives with her son Igor in her own two-room apartment. She has good furniture and a library. She often goes to visit Victor. I visited her after our mother's funeral. Olga's son Igor is fond of literature and tries to write fantastic stories. I gave him the book Russian Writers about the language so that he could learn how to write. He worked as a Komsomol leader of the plant and now in a company. I will also say the following. Oля and my Natasha are very similar to each other, both in height and face. So I finished the story about my brothers and sisters, and now I will start with my childhood years. I will tell you about myself, about our family, and about the Yashniki in more detail.